What's up, guys? So there's a lot of changes that are happening in society and how we just carry ourselves on a day-to-day basis, how we relate to one another. And more specifically, what I'm talking about is sex in relationships. So a lot of men nowadays just aren't having as much sex as they had in previous generations. And across the board, both men and women aren't choosing to be in committed monogamous relationships like they were in previous generations. So in this video, I just want to talk about some of the stats that back that up, explain why it's happening, and then explain also why it's a bad thing that it's happening. So here's some of the stats. It says the number of men under 30 who would never have sex has tripled in the last 10 years. Here's another one for you. Nearly a third of men under age 30 have not had sex in the past year. Now, when you look at this graph here, you'll see that women aren't affected by this as drastically as men are. Sure, their percentage is up a little bit, but when you look at men, it's much more drastic, the increase in men who aren't having sex. So basically what that means is that women are still having sex pretty much the same as they always have. However, men, on the other hand, are not having as much sex. So what exactly does that mean? Well, that means that there's probably a small portion of men who are having all of the sex essentially, right? And I think there's two main reasons as to why this is happening. One is that women's expectations are changing. They're becoming higher. And this is because of social media, this is because of dating apps, this is because women are just becoming more independent and they're earning more money. That's just how it is, that's how we're kind of evolving as a society. And because they're becoming more independent and their expectations are being higher, it takes more from a man in order to get interest from a woman, right? You know, when you look at older generations, the average working man used to be admirable to the average woman, but that's no longer the case. You know, the average woman is now wanting that top tier, top 10 to 20% of men. And unfortunately, the majority of men are falling behind. The majority of average men are falling behind. And I think this is why we're seeing more and more men that aren't having sex. The majority of men are, getting fat and lazy, or they're unmotivated and unemployed. They don't have any drive in life. Instead of trying to find a relationship in real life, they're opting to porn for filling that void. And it's creating this very imbalanced society because, like I said, it's this small group of men that are getting all of the attention, that are getting all of the sex, getting all of the hookups, and essentially all these women are sharing that top group of men. So it creates this kind of distorted incentive structure because why would a man who has multiple different options, who has multiple different women that are interested in him, why would he commit to one woman when he can have multiple? And I think that's what we're seeing here. Is we're seeing this kind of polygamous society that's starting to take place or starting to form. All of the women are essentially sharing a small group of men, and it's creating this kind of weird hookup culture that we're seeing more and more of. And this is why we're seeing less and less relationships that are actually happening. So let me read another statistic for you guys. It says in 2019, roughly 4 in 10 adults ages 25 to 54, 38%, were unpartnered. That is, neither married nor living with a partner. This share is up sharply from 29% in 1990. So we're up almost 10%, and that was in 2019. I would bet current day in 2023, it's probably up even more now, and there's even more people that are single or choosing not to get married. And I guess now the question is, why is that a bad thing? Because being single is fun, right? Being independent is fun. And while I agree with that, yes, it is fun, there's numbers that back up why this is a bad thing. So when you look at it from a financial perspective here, it says on average, unpartnered adults have worse economic outcomes than partnered adults. And here's some stats to back that up. 82% of partnered people are employed versus 75% of unpartnered people. Median earnings are $14,000 higher for partnered individuals than for unpartnered individuals. 37% of unpartnered individuals are considered financially vulnerable, while only 26% of partnered individuals are considered financially vulnerable. And I think the reason this is, why it's impacting people so much on a financial level is because our decision making is just different when we're single versus when we're in a relationship. When we're single, we make riskier decisions. We engage in riskier activities and behaviors, right? When you're single, you're more likely to be going out to the bars and partying and hanging out with single people. You're more likely to be hooking up with multiple people or having sex and sleeping around. You're just less tight with your money. And that's because when you're single, you don't have anybody else to consider. You don't have any other responsibility outside of yourself. And again, while that seems fun and that can be exciting, and it certainly can be, when it comes to being successful long-term financially, or even just being healthy, from a mental perspective or emotional perspective, you're gonna be healthier in a relationship, assuming it's a healthy relationship, than you will be as a single person. And I think that's the main point that I wanna make with this video, is that, oftentimes people see being in a relationship as baggage, or like something that's a bad thing, that's like a hindrance on their life. And while it definitely requires responsibility, I think it's 100% a good thing, because it forces you to look at life through a perspective bigger than just yourself. Responsibility is good. Being committed to someone is good. Having stability in your life is good. And again, while these may not always be super fun and super exciting, they will help you evolve into a better person. They may not always be comfortable, they may not always be easy, but again, it's going to help you evolve, it's going to help you become better and ultimately just live a happier, healthier life. And that's the message I'm trying to preach in this video. I see a lot of these red pill YouTubers or self-improvement people talk about, how guys should never get married, or they should never get married until this age. And I can see where they're coming from with a lot of these arguments or these points, but I do think it can be kind of toxic at the same time. I think us having responsibility is a good thing, and it forces us to evolve and just become more well-rounded as individuals. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Let me know if you guys have any additional thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and until next time, peace.